I'm one of the 38,000 people in Southampton who live a more limited and frustrating life than people who are non-disabled because of accessibility obstacles in our local infrastructure. But it doesn't have to be like this. On Tuesday, the 18th of October, the Southampton City Council Cabinet will have the opportunity, for the first time in decades, to approve recommendations made by its own Accessible Southampton Scrutiny Inquiry that could improve physical access in the city for people who regularly face accessibility issues due to physical disability, like me. Cities like Chester, Derby and Liverpool have proved what can be achieved when commitment to inclusivity is backed up by resources. Chester has employed a designated access officer since 1991. This led to changes that saw Chester become the most accessible city in Europe by 2017. Mark Pirnie, the council's scrutiny manager, who managed the council's accessibility inquiry, chaired by Cllr Vaughan, agreed to talk to me about the findings.
So Mark, I was really pleased and grateful to be part of giving evidence to the scrutiny panel inquiry. So the opportunity to give evidence and tell the panel about my life and some of the issues that, bad design, for example, causes was a great opportunity for me.
All of our inquiries should be based on local interest, local perspectives, residents' feedback. So that's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
So I never discourage anybody from wanting to engage and give evidence. And so that's why you were invited. That's why we made sure that in the inquiry we worked closely with Spectrum Sill and Ian Loynes to make sure that the voice of disabled people was front and centre, and to make sure that there was a forum that helped feed into the inquiry.
And I think for me as well, it's really important to have normal people engage with politics.
Yeah. And we like to get national experts in, because national experts can give us a bigger understanding of some of the policies, strategies, approaches, good practice. And we like to get them in early in the inquiry. So we did that with the Chief Executive of Accessible, as well as our Director of Adult Social Care. But that gives us a big picture. Our elected members want to know what the challenges are on the ground in the city. They don't know the challenges, apart from when people like you contact our elected members directly as part of their casework.
Yep.
But for you can point out the challenges for the new West Quay, the challenges with some of the transport interchanges. Our members can relate to that. And some of the videos that you presented to the panel. Oh, I know that road. Yeah, I've seen that before. Oh, I can move, and they can understand that they can move in and out of it. But now they can say, hold on, if I was in a wheelchair and I was partially sighted, that's a whole different perspective. Why are we doing it like that? So again, that's brilliant for them.
And that is actually why I started making TikTok videos, because I was getting really frustrated with the council not listening to me. Things like contacting highways about an issue and then being told that it was actually housing, but then housing don't really have the tools to deal with highway issues, understandably. And it all, I was getting really frustrated with the system. And I was, sending letters and sending in inquiries to try and get things fixed, and then not hearing back because I'd actually contacted the wrong department, and things like that were happening. And so I took to social media just really to get it out there.
And again, I can't thank you enough, because actually I can write some nice words about things. I can't put it in your language. I can't put it from your perspective. So that is the most powerful page in the report.
So I understand from the report that you spoke to other cities like Chester and Liverpool who have dedicated officers within the council that look at accessibility issues. Why doesn't Southampton have that?
Again, it's not a simple answer. I think the answer is we used to. I think most local authorities at one point in time did have access officers to help support our planners, our designers, making sure that our buildings and infrastructure was accessible. But again, over a period of time, local authorities have come under severe budget pressures. There have been different priorities put upon local councils, and challenging and difficult decisions have had to be taken. And I think in Southampton, again, this is a long time ago, because I'm not aware. I've been working at the council for a number of years, and I don't recall an officer named as an access officer for that period of time. So I think decisions taken a long while ago, reflecting different priorities, budget challenges, impacted on Southampton, whereas cities such as Liverpool made a conscious decision to prioritise accessibility and to maintain that post, as have places like Chester, who've had a commitment over the last 10-15 years at least to support and prioritise and promote accessibility. So different decisions made by different local authorities.
Yeah, and for me that really shows in sort of the planning and design of streets, and some of the decisions that have been made, and that's why I have asked to see on some cases the equality impact assessment for certain designs that the council have put in place, because it just seems from my point of view that there's a slight lack of knowledge.
Well, that was evident in the inquiry itself. So we invited planners along to the meeting, and they were very honest with their assessment of where the council is with regards to accessibility and planning, planning regulation and knowledge. There was a recognition that I think the latest updates with regards to accessibility in our planning regulations was about 2005, and there's a recognition that things have moved on since then and we needed to move with them, but we haven't, because we hadn't necessarily had the expertise to call upon. So the report recommends an access officer for the authority to help make sure that inclusion and accessibility is at the forefront of our planning decisions. But again, I think collectively we recognise that we are not in a position we want to be. And again, that is laid out very clear in the inquiry report, and the recommendations support that.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, how are equality impact assessments currently done without that input from an access officer?
Well, again, so a quality impact assessment should be undertaken for all major policies and decisions of the council and big schemes. They are taken by an identified officer who will fill out against the criteria that we use to the best of their ability. Now, some areas they may seek support from, but universally in the council we do not necessarily go to disability groups to seek their advice with regards to the potential impact of an initiative on disabled people. So at the moment it would be officers who, to the best of their knowledge, and they will undertake research, but to the best of their knowledge they'll fill out an impact assessment which says what they think the impact will be. But again, that doesn't necessarily take into account the lived experience of disabled people. From the perspective of an officer of the council, it is a lot to expect them to consult widely with various disabled groups on a potentially a fairly small project, given the time they're working and the resources they've got. And again, obviously, disabled people is just one of the criteria in which impact assessments are judged against. There are a number of other groups, and safety is one of them as well. The recommendation in the report, which would make this easier, is to get an accessibility forum, which would seem to be a logical place from which the council seeks the advice of disabled people on significant changes in the city. So I recognise it would be very difficult to contact, not just through Spectrum SIL, but other organisations, with the Royal National Institute for the Blind, etc. It would be much easier to work through one forum, hence the recommendation in the report.
When I moved from Gosport sort of 10 to 12 years ago, I was really shocked that Southampton didn't have a council-led accessibility forum, because growing up in Gosport there was one, and you could, as a disabled person, anonymously contact them and they would look into an issue and follow it up, even if that issue was, for example, with access in a privately owned shop or something like that. And the council took it really seriously. Councillors would be involved in the forum, and I was really shocked that Southampton didn't have that.
Yeah, and that's a very positive story. And again, we received similar feedback from Chester in terms of their accessibility forum and Liverpool and the way that Derby engaged with disabled people. Again, there's a solution there for the council to follow. What's happened now is that the report has been approved by the panel. It's been submitted to Cabinet. And again, my role sort of ended formally when the report was presented to Cabinet, because then it becomes an executive function, and as a scrutiny manager I drafted the report and made sure that it got sent to Cabinet for consideration.
I wanted to ask, what are the budgetary implications for the recommendations of the report, and is there a budget set out already?
Again, this will be part of the process that the executive are following now. So obviously each of the recommendations, Cabinet will have to decide, do they want to support it? So do they agree with it, yes or no? And if they do, how is it they're going to deliver that recommendation? Now, before they commit to that, they clearly need to understand the financial implications of those decisions, because it will impact on our budget. Again, that will all be outlined in the Cabinet report, which will be published on Tuesday for the 13th of September meeting of Cabinet. So that will outline what the financial implications are. Again, the context of that is the financial challenge that the council is experiencing at the moment. There are a number of things that they might do. So they might agree to support the recommendations. They might identify some finances to deliver elements of it, but there might be a recognition that they need to seek external funding to deliver against some of the more costly recommendations. So again, I don't know the response. I've not seen the final Cabinet report yet, but I would expect there to be an element of, we support this, we don't have the funding in place yet, but we will look to bid for pots of funding which might support delivery of those recommendations.
The full report and the panel's recommendations are available by the Council's online calendar of meetings, listed for the postponed September Cabinet meeting. If your life is affected by these issues, please make your experience known to your local councillor via the Council's website. The Cabinet meeting at the Civic Centre will take place at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 18th of October, and it's open to the public. I look forward to seeing you there.